Welcome to another Rugby League Down South podcast. On a brief, shorter programme this week, Tony Rea, replaced as London Broncos head coach. We'll hear from him as he ends a 19-year association with the club, and mine and your thoughts on the situation too. A couple of hashtag RLDS tweets that I've had from this week. South London Storm saying a great win for the club, with Croydon Rugby League under-13s victorious and Storm Masters leading the men's section back into action as well. If you want to get your thoughts on the programme on Twitter, use the hashtag RLDS or tweet at IAN RAMSDALE. Always good to hear your thoughts. And on email as well, if you fancy being more considered. rldownsouth@gmail.com is the email address to use. As ever, you can download this programme on the totalrl.com website. Interesting that my account on my hosting page, Spreaker, which is where most people listen to this programme, has just been upgraded, so I now manage to see various stats and a good number of people as well listening from the totalrl.com website. Always helps with the sort of associations that we have with them. So if you haven't had a look at their website or the podcast, go to totalrl.com, click on podcast. You can get my podcast there. Why not listen to it on the on that page this week and browse a bit of their content while you're there? It'd be good to click through from the podcast to other pages. As ever, it helps with promotion of the programme Rugby League Down South. But the big news this week that Tony Rea has been replaced as the head coach of London Broncos. He'll be replaced by Joe Grimer, who was brought in as assistant at the beginning of the year, so he's now the head coach of the Super League club in London. Bit of reaction which I had on Twitter when the news was announced. It's from Aaron saying, Tony is Mr. London Broncos, just like Arsene Wenger is Mr. Arsenal. Tony will always have my respect for sticking with us until now. Sam saying, not a good decision at all. The fact that they're even playing is a miracle. Old Post says, a shame really. I don't think any coach could have done better with the players he had. Need to prepare for championship life. And Paul saying a move to CEO would have been better. But let's hear from the man himself, Tony Rea, about a half an hour after the news came through. I managed to give Tony a call. He said, the news is out now, is it? I said, yes, can we have a chat? And he agreed. You may have heard this interview on the BBC Sport website. But here is the chat that I had with Tony Rea while the news was rather fresh in the mind. We've just got the news. I guess the first question is, why?
It was just time. David and I had a chat over the weekend, and it was something we've been talking about for a period, that Joey was going to take over, provided David was happy. And much as anything, I think David felt it was a good time to do that, give it a bit more lead time. And, we're going into planning for next year, and as we're having meetings and getting things ready, I think David more than anyone felt it was a good time to do it.
How do you?
I would rather have stayed on and finished the job off in the year. But I accept that that's not my call, and as part of the discussion on it, and I understand that side of it too.
How do you find that discussion and conversation? Because you're very good friends with David.
Yeah, no, you just got to be honest with each other. We're always like that. We have good, honest, open conversations as we go through it. Top of it was, is this a discussion or not a discussion? And sometimes you got to be strong and make your mind up. That was how that one felt on that occasion.
The club now, or the team, under the stewardship of Joe Grimer, what sort of coach have they got there?
Joey's good. He's obviously, they know him really well. He's had a couple of opportunities to work with the group continually there. He's a good man. He's really responsible. He's got the club at heart, which is really important. There's a bit of momentum. I think we're in. We've built up nicely. We've held together well. We've got gradual improvement. I expected us to have a really good back half of the season. So I expect that. And I know that Joey feels the same there as well. So we're looking to have a really good back end of the season and get in the bubble and prove everyone wrong. From this, the disappointing thing is that was the real story for me this year. It was about to happen. The real bits we were building up to about to happen. I'm disappointed that the best call for us is not to do that, but. Equally, I understand it, so you live with it and move forward.
You must be sad, though, in a way, to be leaving.
Yeah, I always figured it was time to move. before the end of the year. I am sad that, I just wanted this to be back end of the year to be great, and I'll still be great. The guys have kept together really well. They've run in the same direction. I felt that was, that's good, and I just felt we were all together and going strong. And so I'm a bit sad to that respect, but equally I understand it. Life rolls on.
We never really expected to see you back at the club with, you moving back down under and sort of continuing your life down there. Your appointment back at Broncos a couple of years ago came as something of a shock. Is that it now for your involvement with this club?
Yeah, probably in an official way, yeah. But, it's hard to this time picture it, going other way again. But, you never say never. And, we're a big enough place that we all just got to, you just breathe in and you come back in some way. Maybe, who knows. But I think, I understand why you asked that question. I thought that to myself, when I was walking out of the club this morning. I thought, well, that probably is the last time this time in an official capacity. But, obviously you still get out to games and enjoy what the club's about, because that's what the club is.
And what will you do now? I know it's obviously very very raw and very fresh at the moment, but what do you think you will do? Are you going to hang around, or will you stay here for the rest of the year?
I haven't thought too much about that. But yes, the answer straight up is yes. I really enjoy London. I love London, and I intend to stay here. But equally, you got to put food on the table, and you got a young family, so be wherever the career path leads now.
And people are talking about, you're saying, the club are planning for next year. We talked about it last week and about where the club are going. Are there sort of two options, two plans, one for staying up, one for going down? I mean, what is the plan for 2015?
I don't want to be rude saying it, but you'd have to ask the club. It's sort of out of me now, and I know what my thoughts are, but my thoughts are a bit irrelevant now.
And what about the squad? I guess you wish them you wished them well. You said that you were expecting the second half of the season to be different. I guess you'll still wish that for them.
Oh, massively. I suppose we come together. The club has assembled late. I'm just thinking of training with 5 blokes at Christmas time, and no pre-season, and we're just working through. And sometimes I get as tough as it is for them, and people, it's easy to look at score lines and people attacking, but I look at them out on that field, and even with the scores going against them, they're in there fighting and working hard together. They're not quitting. As long as they have that mentality and don't blame and push forward, they're going to be okay. That's like I said, that's when you ask that question, that's the bit that really probably niggles at you a bit. I thought, my experience was really helpful for them in this period that's going to come ahead. I've been there before, and we've been strong through this sort of a period before. But equally, it's up to them. They're a good enough. They're a good enough bunch of men that they can pull together and prove everyone wrong if they stay focused and stay on that same boat rowing together.
So former head coach of the London Broncos now, Tony Rea, those are his thoughts. It does sound as well, of course. I mean, people listened to that and said it sounds like he was poshed, or he didn't want to leave. Well, I don't think he did want to leave, but he'd obviously been having honest discussions with the chairman, and he agreed when they discussed about the plans that it was the right time for him to move on. I don't think in a way that he was sacked or it was done against his will as such. They agreed that was the case, and I think most head coaches would always want to carry on in their job, because if they didn't, then they'd stand down. I don't think Tony Rea was thinking at that point of standing down, but after an honest discussion, decided that maybe the time was right to let Joe Grimer continue. In a second, more of my thoughts in particular on it, but a few more of your tweets that we had at Ian Ramsdale, or hashtag RLDS on Twitter. Richard saying Tony did the club proud, getting a team together this season. Dave saying probably the best clubman the club has ever had. Served the club at all levels. We wish him well. Without him, there will be no club. And you know what? It does say that it is going to stick around, doesn't he, in London? So if he ever does go back down under, or maybe towards the end of the year, I'll try and have a proper sit-down conversation with Tony about his highlights and the things that have happened while he's been involved with London Rugby League and the London Broncos club. So a more considered interview maybe later on in the year. Dave also saying, shame the fans couldn't say bye in person too. possible. You never know what may happen in the future. I haven't heard anything, but you never know when you might well see him at the Hive or at an event later this year. Don't know, that's just my guess. David says he feels a bit sorry for Tony Rea, to be honest. Always liked him, but couldn't continue. London Faithful on Twitter saying, always a legend in my opinion, but it was the right thing to do. Big respect to him. Paul saying, cannot fault him for everything he tried to do with saving the club, wishing well for the future. While Diane says, looking from the outside, being in the north, I think he'd taken them as far as he could. New blood could be good for them. Matthew saying he likes Tony Rea. I'd have him at Hull FC if the chance came up in the future. So you never know. Tony Rea might well hang around in the country if any opportunities came along. But Joe Grime, as we've said, will now replace Tony Rea as head coach of the London Broncos. You can see an interview with Joe Grimer on the London Broncos website, a video interview which the club have done with him. Good to see that Broncos TV stuff is back underway again, so a good couple of videos on their website. I haven't managed to catch up with Joe myself, busy doing all sorts of other things, which is why this is a reasonably shorter podcast this week. Normal service will be resumed next week when I've hopefully got my pantomime script finished, which is what I'm trying to do at the moment. But yeah, you can catch up with Joe on the website, and I'll talk to him in the next week or so. Fingers crossed, and we'll hear his thoughts from our point of view. Andy saying, good appointment for Joe, bedded in with Super League experience this year, then ready for 2015. Andrew saying it would be brilliant if we got Rob Purdom in. I'm not sure Rob will be tempted away from Cumbria at the moment, but I need to catch up with Rob actually. It's something I've been planning for a while, so fingers crossed we can talk to him in the next few weeks. And Kieran saying, wow, big news, Tony Rea leaving Broncos. He seemed confident about the future on the Rugby League Down South podcast last week. Hope we can tempt Nobby. Does look like Joe Grime was brought in to be the replacement for Tony Rea. He was saying he was ready to move on next year, and that's always been the plan. It's one of the issues that I was asked about when I spoke on BBC London 94.9 this week on the day that the news broke. There was a sports programme, and in fact, having been working on the BBC Late Kickoff programme for the last few weeks, I'm now back working for BBC London Sport on BBC London 94.9 for the considerable future. So I was asked to give my views on the Tony Rea situation and what was happening. So I thought that, it's not every week that we really get my opinion in the programme. I usually try and stay out of it if I can. But as I spoke for a couple of minutes on BBC London, I thought I'd play you my reaction and answer the questions that maybe the people that on the outside of Rugby League are thinking, because whenever I do stuff on BBC London, you don't get the inside conversation, the detail of what it is. It sort of goes over the listeners' heads, really. They want a general overview of the situation and what is happening. So I just thought it would be interesting for you to hear this. So this is myself on BBC London 94.9 answering questions put to me by the wonderful Phil Parry.
Well, that's Tony Rea in conversation with Ian Ramsdale, who I'm delighted to say joins us live now. Ramo, what's the real story here?
Good evening, Phil. Yeah, I think they are getting plans for next year in place, and I haven't heard on the record or off the record over the last few months that Tony Rea was going to be leaving and Joe Grimer, the assistant, was going to be taking over. But it's obviously a decision that they've come to at this stage of the season, with them not having won a game, and I'm not sure that the particular plan is that they'll try and rectify this season at all or get some wins on the board, but it does mean that they are putting a change in place to try and build and get things ready for what will be a season in the second tier of Rugby League next year.
Yeah, which, to be perfectly frank, is probably the wisest thing to do. Could this have been done really even before the start of the season, though, Ian? Because it was fairly obvious, was it not, without wishing to sound harsh, that this was going to be a season of struggle with how late it was before they started recruiting, before we even knew that the Broncos would be playing in Super League?
Yeah, in an ideal scenario, possibly, but I think you don't want to underestimate the role that Tony Rea played in saving the club and making sure that there was a Super League club in London for 2014. He's a man who really believes in the game in London and what it can do. He's been involved as a player, as a coach, as chief executive since 1995 on and off. So he knows exactly how it works and what happens. And if he wasn't around last year, then maybe this team wouldn't be in Super League. And he was the man that was always going to be there coaching them, the team, whatever they could assemble for this season. So I don't think that really could have been done any earlier. He was always the man that was going to make sure that this season got off to the best possible start. And I don't really think they could have done it any differently.
What's the objective for the rest of the campaign, Ian? Because, it will be a season where they will lose their Super League status. It's just inevitable, isn't it?
It's funny, actually. It's a question that I've been meaning to put to the new management structure of the London Broncos for the last couple of weeks. Surprise, surprise, I haven't managed to nail down an interview in the last few weeks, which maybe now, the reasons become apparent. But I think they now need to concentrate on next year and what they need to do. And I think the best statement to send out would be to say that we will be in the second tier next year, but we're going to be a full-time club. There aren't any of those at the moment. They would have floods of CVs landing on their desk of players of that level that would want to try and go full-time and want to try and pit their wits against the best in the league. If they can make a statement now to say, that's what we intend to do, we plan to be full-time next year, we're going to try and win the division, be very competitive and slowly build ourselves and get our academy and our structures in place to have a go at Super League in the next few years whenever they can get back. I think that's the best message and the best thing that they could do right now.
We will in the summer, I think, have a closer look at rugby league in London and the South East, Ramo, on BBC London. But just finally, in regards to this, it really has sort of petered out, hasn't it? This has been an opportunity spurned, I think, by the sport and maybe those who run the sport rather than those who support the sport in London.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very tough few months for them, and that's due to various factors, which are too detailed to really go into. But the sport is struggling at the moment, and it really needs some help and some investment and some guidance, really, and that comes from the board level all the way down to coaching and player level. They need to sort of get a plan in place. They've changed their management structure. They replaced their chief executive with a new sort of management board just a month ago, and it sort of shows signs of they are trying and they are trying to do things a little differently, and that's exactly what they're going to have to do because people talk about rugby league not working in London. It does at certain levels, but it hasn't yet at the Super League, at that top level. That's where it needs to function and that's where it needs to succeed if the game is going to catch on in the capital and be as successful as many people believe it is. So I think possibly the signs point towards progression could be made, but again, they still need to sort of put their money where their mouth is and make some changes, make those positive changes and sensibly set a long-term plan to take the club and the game further forward in London.
Ramo, thanks for the time being. As I said, I think during the summer, in the next few weeks, we'll have a more detailed look at the state of the sport in the capital. So much work that's been going on at grassroots level, but where the future may lay and how we make sure that there is success in the future.
So that's myself talking to Phil Parry on BBC London Sport. Aaron on Twitter saying he heard it and thought it was very honest of the current situation at the club, very honest even of the current situation at the club. And just a couple of other bits of news I want to fit in before the end of the programme. Apologies, it is a shorter version this week, but other things going on in my life which are taking up rather a lot amount of time. You may have seen the news that Ryan McGoldrick has signed for Oxford RL. Tony Benson's convinced him to play a few games for them this year. Paddy on Twitter saying not just Oxford RL but a USA international as well, absolutely. And Patrick saying London could probably have done with him. Yes, potentially, although I guess that we will see what Joe Grimer's plans are for the future and how he intends to build a side. They have a core of developing youngsters, both Londoners and from further afield as well. And I wonder whether they're going to try and build a young, energetic squad and have an attack at the Championship or the Super League 2, whatever the division is, next year if they do end up getting relegated. The next few games, as Joe Grimer says in his interview on the Broncos TV on the London Broncos website, the next few games are crucial really. If they can get a win, then maybe things possibly might be different, although they are getting ever more adrift at the bottom of the Super League table. I want finally just to mention now, at the time of recording, what is it now? It's just gone 2 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, and in fact it's just up the road. It may even pop up there. Allianz Park, the home of Saracens Rugby Union, isn't it? They're having the finals of the London and South Boys Champion Schools final, and you may know the name Howard of Effingham. Yes, the first Southern side to win a Year 7 final at Wembley a couple of years ago. The Year 7s have got through the national final or national finals again. They've won the London final because they were 14 all with RGS High Wycombe, another school that's really taken to rugby league in the last few years. We should maybe do a slot on this next week. If I had more time today, I'd include it in this programme, but unfortunately it's not going to happen. But 14-all, Howard of Effingham and RGS High Wycombe at full time, but a drop goal in extra time from Howard of Effingham put them through to the final. The Year 8's final, Howard of Effingham beat Hadley High 38-12, so another victory for Howard of Effingham. I just seen a couple of minutes ago a tweet saying at half time in the Year 9 final, Howard of Effingham at 10-16 down to Verulam. 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 So Howard of Effingham not doing too bad at the moment, are they? Having embraced the sport of rugby league in the last few years, so maybe more of that in the next few weeks of programmes. But thank you once again for listening to this programme. Again, apologies, it's rather short. Tried to get as much reaction to Tony Rea departing. Big news this week for the London Broncos club. Much rebuilding to do, and once I have got this pantomime script finished and handed in and submitted, or the first draft at least, I've got another month then to hopefully do another version of it, or an improved version of it, and I will have more time to concentrate on the programme in the next few weeks. Thanks once again for listening. As I said, don't forget to visit totalrl.com for the website and for the podcast, the website, and all the other stories, and I'll be back next week. Thank you once again for listening.